Hey, I'm a third year game art student and I started playing Pokemon Sword and Shield. It's been really fun so far, but the game definitely has some issues. I'm enjoying playing the game a lot, so I'm going to ignore most of the arguments you see on Twitter. What I'm going to be talking about is mostly the visuals from like a game production point of view. The game opens up with its usual big opening Pokemon speech. For this game, however, it feels off. I couldn't put my finger on it at first, but it's the lack of voice acting. You're in a big stadium with cheering in the background, and if you read fast, you're just sitting there watching animations. Like, they should be talking, but nothing's coming out of their mouth. That was really off-putting to start the game. Like, have a look at this. After that point, the game is really pretty and the style is super pleasing. I didn't see really anything that brought me out of the game. That is, until I reached the first major town, Motorstoke. For a little context, at uni all I do most days is environment art. I stare at game environments, I analyse game environments, and I am constantly being critiqued and critiquing others on their work. As a result, I'm not that bad at picking up when something isn't right or needs a little bit of work. The city has so many things that stood out to me right away as soon as I walked through the gate. Right, we're not even in the town yet, and look at this pipe. It really bothered me. Why is it so low poly? It's huge in the scene, I'm sure they could have spent more polygons on this. Actually, the whole game seems to be way lower poly than it should be, especially for the Switch's capabilities. I wonder if they're just used to developing for weaker systems. Maybe the previous game's models were like this and I never noticed because of the lower resolution. Anyway, I'm not done with this pipe. Look at the way it connects to the ground. It's just sitting on top of a tiling texture. There's no transition. It looks like an asset and it doesn't sit well in the world. It could be really good. The texture as well. From a distance, it's not too bad, but up close, it looks like it was made by someone who just discovered procedurals in Substance Painter. There seems to be very little rhyme or reason for any of the grunge. I've noticed the edgeware as well. There's quite a lot of it in this game, and it just looks like metal edgeware from Substance Painter. It's probably not a problem for most people, but it distracts me. I spend most of my time in Substance Painter, so when I see something that looks like a first-pass texture in the final game, I gotta wonder why. Let's move on to the town. There's a lot to like here. Living in London myself, I really like the way it looks. I've walked past buildings and places that look just like this. The city's really fun to explore, and it's convenient to find all the shops you need. Sadly, here you encounter the same issues I had with the pipe, but on a much larger scale. There seems to be an overall lack of consideration for how tiling textures look on the larger scale, and as expected with the tiling material, there's a considerable amount of repetition, but they've done nothing to hide that fact. In class, we're told not to add too many unique markers to a tiling material, as it will be really obvious. Pokemon, however, seems to put that repetition on full display. For example, any wall in the city. Look at how the dirt repeats on the wall. The smaller assets don't seem to have this problem as much. The bridge in the foreground here looks alright, and it's quite interesting to look at. I'm not sure if the game is using PBR values. For all I know, the textures are hand-painted. But if they are using PBR, where's the roughness and metalness values? Everything looks so flat. Things that are clearly meant to be metal don't look any different from things that are meant to be stone or wood. Also, can we talk about the fact they're clearly using the same brick texture way too much? Changing the hue won't make me think it's not reused. The walls could very easily be broken up by some decals or vertex paint, or whatever equivalent they have in their engine. Let's move on to the models briefly. Please just bevel your sharp corners. Geometry is hardly an issue in 2019. Nothing in reality is a perfect right angle. And if I'm getting shit for that at university, the professionals should at least be doing it. Where polygons are used, there seems to be this weird priority. Huge mountains have less than smaller props. Some buildings look super out of place as well. The Pokécentres and shops in Motorstoke look so much higher quality than the larger buildings. As I mentioned earlier, the transitions between objects could be better. It's all well and good to put objects inside each other, but if the transition looks bad, then everything around it will look less realistic. Now, I know the game has a distinct style, but it's still based off the real world, and we know how intersecting walls look. So maybe some attempt to hide such an obvious issue would be nice? For most of the game, you have a fixed camera, apart from the wild zones of course. And this makes the low poly assets even more baffling. Being able to hide assets and control the camera makes it so much easier to control where the polygons are distributed. And the only thing that makes all of this so noticeable is that it's not like this throughout the entire game. Some areas have so much more care put into them. The textures look more detailed, the transitions between assets are much more realistic, and oh my god, where the water gym is, they even bevel 90-degree angles. I have to wonder why Motorstoke suffers so badly from a lack of polish when other areas look so great. And I want to say, I really like this game, I'm loving it, I'm putting more and more hours into it every day. But just those small things that I notice, just those small things take me out of the experience. And for such a big company, I wonder why they're there. Now, these are all just my opinions, and I could be completely wrong, but there's something I've been thinking about.